Hello, I'm Jonasz Lewiński and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. Tough days ahead for Russian sanctions-busters, following a series of incidents in the Baltic Sea involving Moscow's elusive shadow fleet tankers. Western countries have decided tighter sanctions are in order. As the latest US sanctions package dropped, reports indicate China and India are no longer quite as happy to deal with Russian suppliers. But will that put the end to the matter? Or is it just one more step in the long campaign of whack-a-mole against a cunning and evasive adversary? Joining us now is Captain Dariusz Jellonek, president of the Polish Shipping Companies Association. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So the Baltic Security Summit begins today, featuring leaders of Nordic and Baltic countries, as well as Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Do you think that this meeting could bring about something that we call a breakthrough in the matter of the activities of the shadow fleet?
I believe it is a good initiative to do something, because in the recent couple of months and the last few years, we have a few acts of the sabotage on the Baltic Sea done by the ships, and it is important that the Baltic countries will send some signal that this could be controlled by the NATO Navy. So, of course, it will be not so easy to act always correctly, because there is the international navigation law of the free passage for the vessel. So unless we can notice that something is done completely wrong, it will be difficult to interfering with the free passage. But looking the previous sabotage actually by the Chinese vessel, which used the dropping the anchor on the Baltic bottom and cut the communication cable, it's always difficult to understand, is an act of the sabotage or there was because of the bad weather and the bad condition of the vessel. But without any controlling possibility from the countries in the Baltic Sea, of course, this will gonna happen again and again.
So you've mentioned the questions of maritime law. In what cases are countries which are surrounding the Baltic Sea, for example, allowed to inspect these vessels? Can environmental or security concerns, for example, be used as an argument for inspecting a given vessel in transit?
That's I believe, the difficulties, because of course there is a possibility to control the vessel when it's entered the port, but when it's passing on the international sea, it is difficult actually to stop the vessel unless we can notice that something is happened wrong. So when the vessel is entering the country water, which is only 12 miles zone from the shore side, then of course the jurisdiction of each country increase. But up to the vessel is on the, I would say, international waters, then is the difficulties what can be done. So we can see at that moment that there are a couple of vessels actually stopped by the authorities, but they've always been stopped when they be coming into the country water, which then is the different jurisdiction.
So are there no exceptions to this rule? For example, if we have reasonable concerns about the seaworthiness of the given tanker. Incidentally, one of the tankers that was stopped recently due to concerns about its possible involvement in the damage to the cables in the Baltic Sea was also found not to be seaworthy at all. So is it possible to say, okay, we have legitimate reasons to believe the vessel might have technical issues. Can we stop them in transit, or do we have to wait until they arrived at a given seaport?
I'm afraid at that moment, how I understand, we will have to wait up to the vessel actually to reach the port or reach the national waters. Unless, I would say, if there is a sign that something is completely going wrong, then maybe there will be possible to get onto the ship. But for example, like this, the last one with this Chinese vessel, I believe the investigation is still still going, because losing the anchor is not something which not happened often, yeah, but it has happened sometimes. It's unless due to the bad weather or the bad condition of the securing the anchors. To be honest, I have experience in my life when I was a ship's captain, the dropping the anchor during the bad weather, and of course it's not easy to discover this when you have really fighting against the high seas. We're looking into the Baltic Sea and especially the Gulf of Finland when this was happened. I will be rather say that was a part of the sabotage, because obviously this is a very close area and you will never have such a high sea, which I, for example, have experienced in the north part of the North Sea. But as I said, at that moment, that's the difficulties which every country has to enter the ship. But if the vessel will see the NATO vessels going around and patrolling, etc., of course, that will be not so easy for them to do any act of the sabotage, if it was a sabotage. So that's I would say, important part of the NATO, that if they will show that the activity of the Navy vessel around, I believe the captains of the merchant vessel will not do anything stupid anymore.
So that would be useful against possible acts of sabotage, but what about controlling the movement of the shadow fleet in itself? Many of these vessels are now under sanctions, and you've mentioned that if they enter territorial waters, they could be inspected. With the Baltic Sea, is it possible for these ships not to enter any territorial waters at all? I mean, there are straits that they have to go through. So isn't it the case that for the Baltic, this is not that much of an issue, because they will have to enter some territorial waters anyway, and at this point we could inspect them?
With the shadow fleet, of course, there is a few things together. First of all, they will never happen if there will be not receiver of the oil from Russia. So that's the most important. So important bit is that the European country, for example, will not buying any more Russian oil. There will be no possibility to carry the oil. For how long is the receivers are ready to pay quite a good money probably for transporting the oil from Russia? They will going on. I believe that the owners, the big owners, and the ship managers, they couldn't do it. They couldn't, I would say, go for this shadow fleet. First of all, because it is the sanction. Second of all, they can be banned from the Europe, from US. And the business can easily collapse. I'm afraid that at that moment where we're looking for these shadow fleets, there are probably the small owners, one vessel owner or two vessel owners, when this business is only the business what they have at that moment. The important part is that we already noticed that the ship's identity could be stolen, and the shadow fleet vessel using the stolen identity, and this is important, easy to recognize, because on each vessel you have the special equipment allowing us from outside to identify the vessel. So if, for example, the NATO can controlling this and knowing how the vessel should looks like and what the details of the vessel should be, that will be easy to discover that vessel is using the stolen identity, and that could be the reason why we can stop the vessel. Otherwise, once again, when the free passage is coming, it is difficult to find out what exactly the vessel have on board. Of course, I would say if we're looking the possibility when we can load the Russian oil, there are not so many places, especially in the Baltic Sea. We're talking about 2-3 places. So it is easy to discover. This is a tanker, fully loaded, just coming from Russia. So must be they carry the Russian oil. And the important is, where is the destination of the vessel? If this is going to the country which actually pulls the sanction over the Russian oil, then is the possibility to stop this.
So now we're talking about these tankers being used to dodge the price cap, which has been set at $60 per barrel. Now, would you say that the reports indicating that companies in India and China are no longer willing to deal with Russian companies because of the possible involvement in the sanctions regime is a good signal now.
There is the signal that the strong signal they receive now for sure, because also the some of the vessel has been stopped for this reason. And but as I said, the most important is to stop the other countries to buying the Russian oil, especially on the Baltic Sea, when we can easily notice where the vessels are coming from and what they can carry. So that's important part. And as you can see, we can see on this chart, this is the country which should control the Baltic Sea ships movement. Of course, we know there is a lot of ships going on and off from different directions, etc. But as I said, it's only the few ports really where you can load this Russian oil. So, in my opinion, if we have put a really strong control, especially on the Baltic Sea, we can easily discover all these shadow fleet vessels.
And do you think that the price cap should be lowered even further? Some countries say it shouldn't be 60, it should be lower than that.
Say again, I didn't hear the question.
The price cap, do you think that it should be lower than 60? Some countries are actually proposing the lowering of the price cap further still.
I would say from the okay, this is for the buyers of the oil. The vessel who actually carry the oil, they're working not on the price of the oil, they're working on the price, how much the receivers are paying per day per carry this oil. And of course, as you can imagine, because it is prohibited product, so the price for carry this oil probably is higher than the normal price to carry any other oil through the sea. So and this is not like a 1-to-1 the price of the oil regarding the price for carry the oil.
And is there still a problem in Europe itself of Russian oil making its way to European buyers? Because we've mentioned China, we've mentioned India, but how about closer to home? Do we still have this issue?
I believe lower and lower, because we saw the announcement of different countries that they completely stop buying the oil and the gas from Russia. So it will drop, I will say, absolutely to minimum, because if you don't have a receiver, you have nothing to carry. Of course, I will say we're only talking here about the Baltic Sea. The Russia also have the ports in the north part of Russia and also the far east. And this is absolutely, I would say, out of our control, because we couldn't really control the traffic over there.
Captain Dariusz Jellonek was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your expertise.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
And I'm Jonasz Rywinski. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us for more latest news and updates.